Here for the first time. Okay, so you guys know the drill. We have a short presentation, and then we're going to go into a Q&A. If you have questions during the presentation, just hold them for the Q&A, because we need you to speak into the microphone, because we are being recorded. So with me is Nick, also with the Cannabis Management. Joy is here. Any other city staff? Fire is here. Code is here. Brian, a lot of you know Brian from your inspections. And Beth is coming up from the fire department. She has a short presentation too. Okay, let's get started. So update on the CUP and the BOP. We have 211 approved CUPs, 364 total submitted. BOPs, we've issued 93, actually 97 as of this morning. We added 4 operational permits this morning. We have 271 operational pending, 13 denied, and 10 denials in progress. On the September 9th deadline, for those of you who got the letter and you did not meet the deadline, you may or may not have been referred to the Housing and Dangerous Buildings, HDB. But majority met the deadline. So if you're been referred to HDB, you would know, because they'll be in contact with you. Common issue coming up, expired CUPs. So the date on the expiration of your CUP is on your record of decision. It's for all CUPs, it's 3 years, right, Joy? 3 years, but for cannabis CUPs, it's 1 year. Sorry, what? The Southeast Industrial Area. So pay attention and look at your record of decision. If your CUP expiration is coming up, contact planning and make sure that you apply for an extension. And what constitutes an expired CUP? A CUP that's not been activated, meaning building has not started, no building plans have been submitted, correct? Close. Let me give the mic to her.
Hi. Some of the CUPs in the southeast area have a condition on them that says you must obtain your building permits and start construction of your project by a certain date. So if you do not obtain your building permits and start construction of your project by that date, then your use permit has expired. Unless, if it looks like you're working on, you can come in and ask, it's a condition, so you can come in and ask to modify that condition. And the zoning administrator can consider whether or not to modify that condition and give you more time. If you don't have that condition, use permits in general, whether they be cannabis or for assembly or for alcohol or whatever they're for, this zoning code says that the conditional use permit is good for 3 years. Those also can be extended, and all that stuff is in the code. But so you're good for 3 years unless you had a condition that said you didn't. And if you're paying attention during your hearing, you know whether you have that condition on or not.
All right. Thank you, Joy. Okay, I'm going to give you Nick. He's going to talk about business operations tax and a couple of other issues.
Hi there. So where's the clicker? There it is. I just wanted to bring up just some quick issues. We've had some misinformation or lack of understanding one way or another about the cannabis business tax. Everyone has to have a business tax certificate, or cannabis business tax certificate, excuse me. You will file or apply for that whenever you submit your application or sometime within that process. You can't start operating without having applied for it. Once you take your, those should be, I guess, backwards. Once you take your first revenue, that will activate that account, basically. That's when you'll reach out to revenue, to Rennell, and say, hey, we've started operating, we've taken in money, and we need to begin remitting taxes. Those remittals are due every month. Over the past week, I've heard people thought they were due every year or every quarter. For cannabis, given that it's all cash and just for safety and ease, they're due every month. So you'll schedule all that through Rennell. And then, failure to remit can result in admin penalties, application denial, or BOP revocation. If you have any questions, there's Rennell's information in revenue, or you can contact our office. We can answer some of them. Whatever we can't, we'll get you to Rennell either way. So that one's pretty easy. And then we'll talk about security really quick. So just like Zara and Joy mentioned about your CUP for expiration conditions, that sort of thing, you will want to review those again for security conditions. Based on where you are, PD will have added conditions that might be unique to your property for your conditional use permit. So whatever those security conditions look like, you'll want to verify that you are adhering to those. We've had a number of break-ins in the last month and a half, 2 months. Many of you in the building were affected by those. So, we're sort of a renewed focus on security and security compliance. And then we've also been told by security companies that applicants will go through the walkthrough with our office and with PD, and then call their security company and remove some services just because it is a little expensive. And that is no bueno. So we've actually sort of, with the security companies, we are authorizing them to contact us when those services have been canceled, because that is a requirement not only for your BOP, but also for your CUP. So you're violating all sorts of city requirements there. And if you do have any questions about security specifically, again, you can contact us. We can answer most of them. When it comes to specific projects or conditions, more than likely you'll have to talk to Sergeant Matt Young or Sergeant Lewis Peace. Their information's up there, and we can make that available later, and this will be online soon if you need that. But that's all I have for taxes and security. So who's next? Beth, all right. So there you go. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hello, I think I've seen probably most of the folks in this room. I just wanted to clarify things. We're starting to see the inspections trickle in, so I want to make sure you guys have the most accurate information. For fire, you'll see us do more than likely just the new construction and the annuals. You may see us out for other various reasons, but the biggest problem we're running into right now for scheduling, and I know it's causing you guys hiccups in the field, is when you schedule, we're getting a call for the new construction that just says, I need a final. Yet there's other various inspections that take place before you're technically ready for that final. Oh, sorry. So I created this kind of step-by-step guide to help give you guys some guidance on that. They're outside. But basically, if you're calling for new construction, you'll have fire alarms, fire sprinklers. You may have CO2 if you're manufacturing, or other ethanol. So I just want to make sure you guys have that information to help you get through the process, because what's happening is we're getting a call saying, I need a final. And then we get out in the field and we're like, oh, wait a minute. You guys had 4 other inspections that needed to take place prior to your final. So it kind of creates a backlog for you guys. And then for inspections, it also kind of compounds it and causes some issues there. The other is that we are doing annual inspections. So typically, we like to do the annual after you're set up in production. We see what everything's going to look like. Sometimes that can lead into issues with sprinkler systems, fire alarms, and we can address those at that time. The only other item I wanted to really kind of highlight is that all rooms that are on your issued permit need to be ready when you call for an inspection. We can't, unless the permit has been phased, just do one room and then come back and do another room and then come back and do another room. So it's a big request we're seeing. So I've got our contact information. There's myself, Officer Kwong, and Officer Dutcher on the back of this. If you guys have seen them or have any questions for them, their cell phones, emails, and everything is right there. Feel free to reach out to us. That's all I've got.
All right, some policy updates. So council on 2 nights ago approved the extension of the cap in D6. We have a cap of 50 permits. And the deal was we are going to do a traffic study, see what the impact of having 50 deliveries in the Southeast Industrial Area. However, in the past year, we've only been able to issue 8. And out of the 8, only 5 are operational. So we don't have enough data to conduct a study. We're anticipating a lot of permits, maybe 20 or so issued in the next couple of months. So once we get to that number, we're going to do the traffic study and submit that to council. But in the meantime, cap's still at 50. We have 50, give or take, applications. No, 42 applications and 8 have been issued. There are a couple that may be moving out of that area, so there might be available permits, but it's a race to 50. So we're capped at 50 permits, not 50 applications. So if there's any interest, there's 1 or 2 that may become available in the next couple of months. Manufacturing, so the item that we took to Lawn Ledge on September 3rd had 2 components. Small manufacturers, we proposed to increase the threshold from 100,000, currently 100,000 to $500,000. But Lawn Ledge wanted us to look at the numbers closely if 500,000 is the right number, or if it's 750 or even $1 million. So we are going to do a stakeholder meeting with small manufacturers, and we're doing some research, see what that number is. Currently, we have tentatively scheduled the meeting with stakeholder for small manufacturers for the 14th. We haven't notified anyone. This is the first time that we're announcing it, but we're looking at that date. And we will contact you once it's confirmed. Once we have a good number to propose to Lawn Ledge, we're going back possibly in November. The other component of small manufacturing is volatile manufacturing. It sailed through Lawn Ledge smoothly, but it was defeated at PFP. It needed 5 votes to pass, but we only had 4. So that issue is shelved for now, and we're working on putting it back on the agenda, hopefully soon. So NRP was the other thing that council approved the other night on consent, but the item was just for them to approve an RFQ process, which is what we're doing with those businesses that selected option 2, or to do an individual study. So for the businesses that chose that option, we'll be notifying you of the next step, but we'll be doing an RFQ. And you can select from that list as far as who's going to do your individual study. The other thing is hemp. So council adopted a 45-day moratorium on cultivation. That's the maximum that we can do under state law. We're going back on November 5th for an extension, another 45 days possibly for a longer term while we figure out, while we're waiting for federal and state regulations to be released. So yeah, it only applies to cultivation. If there are any interest in the other sectors, that would default under existing local code, fire, building, and so forth. Oh, applications. So we are also transitioning to new application format, new business entity change form, and a new permit format. So all the applications are now going to be consolidated. I know you all have applications in place already, but if you're doing a renewal, you will see a new form. Okay, I don't know how to work this thing. Never mind. But it will be all on the website. So just highlights of the new application. The applicant will be the entity, no longer the individual. All interested parties will be all interested parties would need to be listed along with their percentages of ownership. And if the individual filling out an application is not the decision maker, we're going to have you submit an authorization from the board. Authorizing you to submit the application. Also, whenever there's a change in ownership, or not ownership, change in management, we're no longer going to print the permits, the BOPs each time, but we will still have you submit records, your board minutes, your filing with the state secretary, but we're not going to reprint the permits, but we are going to have you keep a staff approval on file. So when we do an inspection, when code comes out for inspection, they will look for that approval from our office that you did notify us of a change in your management. What else? The format, the permits have a whole lot of conditions from PD. So the one-page permit before is now 2 pages because of all the security conditions, and it'll be on everybody's permit moving forward. So I guess that's my last slide. Okay, upcoming meetings, we have the lottery process for storefront dispensaries and update to core program. We are adding step relationships, which right now is not under the definition of immediate family member. It only refers to blood relationships. So we're adding step family relationships to that. And we are putting together a resolution outlining the procedures for storefront dispensaries if and when they become available. So that's on the 22nd of October. And then our next stakeholder meeting is on the 26th. We're not going to have one in November because it's Thanksgiving, but we're going to combine November and December. And the last stakeholder meeting for the year is December 5th. So that's all I have. Q&A. Let's do Q&A. Yeah, the fourth Thursday, 10/24. Today's the 26th, yeah, 10/24.
Hi, Zara. Tracy Stevens. Quick question on security. There is a new security requirement for UL cert. For people who had an approved security plan without that, do they have to now revise it so that it's UL, or will they be grandfathered in, or how do we clarify that?
Do you want to answer that?
So can you hear me? Is this on? If PD does the BOP walkthrough, if they've already done the walkthrough for that particular business, then you're okay until the next year. That's how I understand it, at least. This could change. If they've yet to do the walkthrough, then you will be subject to that UL Extent 2, which is the key there. There's Extent 2 requirement. So depends on where you're at in the process to answer that. And that's my best understanding. Again, I'd reach out to PD because they can change that whenever they want. So.
Hi, Zara. It's Kathy Finnerty. Thank you, everybody, for your presentations. That was very helpful. What's the latest and greatest on the NRP study?
Well,
Will we
so
ever
for
get an
those,
answer?
so for the ones that selected option one, the city has started billing and collecting the money, and I think we've invoiced 1.3 million, and 242,000 have come in terms of payment. And there are people who've received the invoices and have started making payment arrangements with revenue.
Thank you. Sorry, my question was too vague. Some of my clients are some of those that have paid that. The question is, when are we going to actually see the study to determine whether or not the 1% assessment is the real value that should be paid?
So the study that came out that was submitted to council back in January, that's the result of the study. And then the people who selected option two, which is, they say, inconclusive, so you do your own study, that's what's pending. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Hi there, Kathy Van Austin. With respect to the caps on delivery, I understand that in District 6 you've got a cap of 50, and that's been extended for another year.
Correct.
Our client has been hearing that there may be new caps being considered outside of District 6, apparently across the city. We haven't been able to validate that. I was wondering if there's any discussion of placing any additional caps on dispensary.
Not that we are aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Wow, this is a record, half an hour stakeholder meeting. Oh, one more question.
Hi, just as a follow-up to that question that was just asked. So not only CAP, but the question of undue concentration that's come up periodically at City Council. I'm just wondering if there's any, this may be a question for Joy, if there's any more discussions that are happening either at the staff level or with council members about how we would define undue concentration throughout the rest of the city and not just in District 6.
Oh, I was going to say. No.
Not at the moment, at least. There's been no.
But is there an expectation that that question is something that's on the radar? Is the expectation that that question is going to be taken back up by the council members or staff in the near future, or is it just holding out for a while?
Yeah. When planning took undue concentration to council more than a year ago last May, it was going to be a two-part, and there was going to be something outside of Power and Alliance, but we've never been asked to bring it back.
Regarding security, you said that you have authorized companies to let you know whether or not they're following the procedure. Is there a mandate, or are you just authorizing security companies? Is there any type of, because burglaries are up 100%, and it's somewhat or partially due to lack of security?
So that's a two-part question there. There's only so much you can harden a building, basically. And the other part to that is, yes, burglaries are up, but that's why PD is looking into approaching it different, from different avenues to figure out why some of some of these facilities have had failures, whether or not they were due to their own actions or due just, you couldn't prevent it one way or another kind of thing. As for the companies reaching out to us, that is, as I understand it, more of a thing between PD and the companies. We, as I understand it, have to give them something in writing. It says, hey, you can, provide this specific information. We have no intention of being debt collectors or anything like that for these companies, but there is a legitimate public interest in maintaining, those conditions and ensuring that those conditions are being complied with. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, I think what I was looking for is, if I heard you correctly, you said that companies are going through their security plan and getting checked off by the city, and then afterwards they're reducing what they said they were doing. And is there any type of ramification for doing that, or is there a way that they're being held accountable, or can they just do it?
Well, it's especially now, it's a condition on their BOP. It's also a condition generally on the CUP, and Title V requires that you operate in adherence to the application that you submitted. So we have a full spectrum of enforcement options, and that's actually something that just came up last week or the week before, whenever we had that security meeting with the companies. That they told us that there were operations out there who had occasionally started reducing their service. So that is something we're going to look into. But we do have the full spectrum of enforcement options, from fines, notice of violation, all that, to revocation or denial.
Yeah, we can take action on the BOP. If there's, if code comes out and do an inspection and they don't have their
Panic
UL
alarms.
certificate, or their security plan is outdated, or whatever's written is not being followed, then yeah, they can issue admin penalties based on that. And we can take action, suspension on their permit as well.
So it would kind of happen when either code enforcement comes out or during the BOP, the re-up process.
Correct.
Of the BOP.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Sarah. I see that you have Title V cleanup on the agenda, and maybe I missed it. Did you talk about that?
Yes, we are very close to bring it before Lawn Ledge. We're hoping November. There's just a very few minor things that are outstanding, being reviewed by the city attorney's office. But we're almost done, and yeah, we've been working on it for a year. So we're hoping November and before the end of the year, and fully implemented by January.
Okay, and so the staff report would be out probably end of October?
Yes, if we can put it on the November Lawn Ledge meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Real quick, Beth just brought up a good point regarding security. If the application, or if the plan you submitted with your application is not sufficient with where the police department's current standards are, and you do have to amend that and add certain things, you always want to make sure you've reached out to fire and building, just depending on whatever those amendments were, or whatever you have to install. So always keep fire in the loop, because that's a very painful last second issue to run into.
Hi. So I thought I heard that volatile manufacturing died in Planning Commission. Is that right?
No, at city council meeting as
At the
a
council
PFP
meeting.
item.
And so I thought you said something about making some changes and potentially going back to it. What does that look like?
No, changes to the small manufacturing.
But not including volatile.
Volatile is a matter of just being put back on the agenda. So council has to make that initiative has to come from council to put it back on the agenda.
But there's no current plan to do that. Is that correct?
Not well, from our end, we can only advocate to put it back on the agenda. So from you guys' end, you can lobby your council to put it back on the agenda.
Thank you.
We are ready to go. We have a staff report. We have full recommendation. It just died an ugly death.
Are there any updates? Have there been more burglaries? I know it was pretty busy in August for a lot of people. I haven't heard too much new things. Curious.
So PD, they were able to make a few arrests during an ongoing burglary. I believe they got some of the leadership, if you will, of that group, and that's sort of all they've released so far that I know. But there have been arrests made, and they believe it was kind of that main group. As far as I can tell, I believe so. It's slowed down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From happening almost every day to.
And on that note, we had one of our businesses reached out and said, hey, I was broken into. I called PD. They never came. I have video or whatever of the guys. If that is a situation that you've run into, you can file that report online. And this morning I spoke with the head detective for this whole case, and those kind of things are getting kind of pushed to the very top, so he'll see them directly. So if you do have anything that PD didn't respond to originally, or if you want to file a report regarding a break-in or something at a business, then go ahead and do that online. It's really easy to do, and you should get a pretty quick response, as far as I understand it.
Hi. Quick question. What safeguards is the city doing to make sure that license holders' information is private? We have a different mailing address and a business public address, but one of the issues we had with the CDFA was all of this information was put on public record and basically making a target for everybody. So what things are you guys doing to try to safeguard blueprints or plans or anything from people getting from public records?
So, as we all know, your application is public record, but if any request done through a Public Records Act request, it goes to the city attorney's office and they redact information that's not supposed to be out there, particularly blueprint and security plans and all that. But yeah, your application is public record. But your premises would still be, the address of the premises would still be on the application. So even if you put your mailing address as a different address, I mean, your personal information will be private, but the location of the business would still be, out there on your application.
Your personal information is redacted by the city attorneys.
Yeah, we understand you're not the first one to bring that up, and unfortunately, it will require a change in the law as far as what information is public and not. Any other questions? 240 still record. Yeah. All right, you know how to reach us if you have any questions between now and the next stakeholder meeting. Thank you all for coming.